Today on Ultima Gaming, we take things to a new dimension in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Then we go for the hole-in-one in Mario Golf Super Rush. And finally, the Groose is loose in HD with Skyward Sword HD. It's game time! Greetings and welcome to Ultima Gaming, a show 6 months in the making. But Hunter, why do these always take so long? Where's the next Ultima Gaming episode, you ask? Patience is a virtue, okay? Just calm down, relax. That and I'm indecisive on what games to play, and you know what, where's your web show? How about that, huh? Where's your podcast? Where's your game review show? Yeah, that's what I thought. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at 3 titles that released over the summer, all with high expectations. The question is, did they deliver? First on the show, we're going to be taking a look at Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Finally, an exclusive PlayStation 5 next-gen only title. Does it live up to the hype? The answer is of course. Of course. Why wouldn't it? Then we're going to be taking a look at Mario Golf Super Rush for the Nintendo Switch. Mario Golf has had its ups and downs in recent years, and this one is one of the downs. It's one of the downs, and we're all sad and very depressed as a result. Then finally, we're going to be taking a look at Skyward Sword HD for the Nintendo Switch. This game had a ton of mixed reception back in 2011 when it first released because of a focus on the motion controls, but meanwhile, it had one of the best written plots of any Zelda game to date. So how does the HD remaster hold up? We'll be taking a look at that later in the show. But first, it's time to finally give you a reason to own a PlayStation 5. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart promises a lot, but does it deliver? Here's our review.
Don't you think it's weird to throw a celebration for us? I mean, we haven't done anything heroic in years.
Few 3D platformer franchises have had the success and consistency of Ratchet and Clank. Born on the PlayStation 2, alongside the likes of Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank set out to disrupt the norm of what a 3D platformer looked like, and more importantly, how its characters behaved in a humorous manner. While many other 3D platformer franchises have come and gone, Ratchet and Clank continues to be a staple within the PlayStation family, helping to showcase what each console is capable of. And Rift Apart, the latest release in the series for the PlayStation 5, makes us ecstatic for what the future holds. Rift Apart follows the adventure of Ratchet and Clank at the end of the Future Saga, where Clank has managed to rebuild a device known as the Dimensionator, which would allow Ratchet to travel to parallel worlds and find more of his species, the Lombaxes. Things go wrong quickly when their old foe Dr. Nefarious shows up, steals the Dimensionator, and it malfunctions, causing worlds to quickly collide and Ratchet to be thrown into an alternate dimension where Dr. Nefarious rules all. With a new dimension comes a new Lombax, in the form of a new character named Rivet. After Ratchet and Clank get separated, Rivet ends up picking up Clank and trying to piece together everything that's happened. As far as gameplay goes, Rift Apart has been given a new mechanic in the form of dimensional rifts, which allow Ratchet and Rivet to pull themselves into nearby rifts, skipping small pieces of land around them. It's useful for sneaking up on enemies and traversing hard-to-reach areas, but it doesn't offer much outside of combat. Ratchet and Rivet control almost identically, and also share upgrades, so you don't have to worry about managing multiple characters at once. Weapons haven't changed much, but that's almost expected at this point with Ratchet and Clank. The series knows what it's good at and keeps it simple. The game is a good mix of platforming and third-person shooting combat, with a large variety of weapons from previous titles, mixed in with a few new ones. From the over-the-top tertiary sprinkler that turns all foes into beautifully sculpted shrubs, to the funky Groovatron and Glove of Doom, there's a large arsenal at your disposal. Speaking of large arsenal, Rift Apart does a fantastic job of upping the difficulty curve from previous games in the series. No matter how far you progress in the game, and no matter how much you upgrade your weapons, it always feels like the enemy AI will keep you on your toes. Weapon balancing has been made so no single weapon is perfect for all scenarios, and that's also factored in with stronger weapons having less ammo. As a result, you'll find yourself switching weapons constantly as you try to avoid wave after wave of enemies. What's most impressive in Rift Apart by far is how Insomniac has been able to take full advantage of the game being a next-gen exclusive. The PS5 holds nothing back with this title, offering multiple modes to run the game in, including a fidelity mode should you wish to see the stunning textures and displays in brilliant 4K with ray tracing, or a performance mode, which sacrifices some of the graphical prowess in favor of a solid 60 frames per second. Either way, the game is simply stunning, with incredible detail to be found in both character models and the surrounding environments. Speaking of next gen, the PS5 controller also is put to the test with Rift Apart, with the adaptive triggers able to use the guns differently based on how hard you pull the trigger. Bundle that in with a complete lack of loading times as you traverse various levels and pocket dimensions, Rift Apart is truly a next-gen feeling compared to previous titles. It makes me proud to own a PS5, and is definitely a game that all PS5 owners should check out as one of their first stops on the next-gen train. Insomniac has managed to create a game that looks almost as good as a Pixar film at times, all with the same humor and charm the series is known for. Longtime fans won't be disappointed, and newcomers will be welcomed with open arms. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart gets a 5
Ooh.
out of 5.
Who knew? After fighting scalpers and spending so much time and blood, sweat, and tears and money, most importantly, you finally found a reason to own a PlayStation 5. Until you beat the game, and then it becomes a media box again, and you just sit on Twitch all day with it. Up next, we've got Mario Golf Super Rush. This game had very high expectations as the last home console Mario Golf game was released in 2003 for Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. It's been a long time coming, but the question is it worth the title of a home console Mario Golf game? The answer, not really. Not really. I'm sad. You know how long I waited for this? You know how long I waited for a proper home console Mario Golf game? I'm stuck with my, not emulator, I would never do that. I'm stuck playing my GameCube Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. World Tour was also going on the 3DS. But no, you're going to give me mediocre, half-ass Mario Golf on the Switch? Of course you would. Of course you would, because you did the same thing with Mario Tennis back in the day. I'm not salty. I'm okay. Here's our review for Mario Golf Super Rush.
The Mario sports titles have always been something incredible. The Italian plumber has done it all, from tennis to soccer, basketball, various Olympic sports, and of course, golf. When I heard that there was a new Mario Golf game around the corner, I was ecstatic. After all, the last home console Mario Golf title was Toadstool Tour, released nearly 20 years ago on the Nintendo GameCube. Surely after such a long break, we'd be awarded with an incredible new entry in the series, right? Right? Not really. Mario Golf Super Rush fits into the dangerous new pattern of Nintendo titles to have an overall lack of content. Perhaps the most infamous example is Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on Wii U, which had nothing more than the standard tennis play mode and offered nothing extravagant or extra in terms of gameplay, besides a single power-up that caused the player to turn giant for a few moments. While Mario Golf Super Rush isn't quite as lackluster, it's still a far cry from what the series once was, with Super Rush feeling bare bones and just a way for Nintendo to quickly ship a game out for a quick buck. Let's start with the good news, however. Mario Golf Super Rush is a fun golf game. At its core, it feels and looks like a traditional Mario Golf title, featuring your favorite cast of characters, all with fancy new golf attire, going through a variety of courses that have an overall nice presentation. Graphically, it's the best looking Mario Golf to date, but that's to be expected, with the last several releases being on handhelds. The new Speed Rush mode is a fun way to switch up the traditional golf gameplay, but we'll get to that in a minute. Outside of those few things, Mario Golf Super Rush doesn't have much more to offer. While there is a story mode, it's incredibly lackluster compared to previous titles, and can be completed in only a few short hours. On top of that, there just seems to be an overall lack of effort by the developers. NPCs will all shout at you with the same voice clip over and over, regardless of how many text boxes they may have. There's also a lack of charm now coming from the playable characters as well, as previous titles in the series were known for having fun little victory animations for different scores, whereas now, these animations have all been condensed into a single victory or defeat animation. This is obviously nitpicking, but the overall lack of effort just seems apparent throughout. In addition to the lack of effort from developers, it seems like Super Rush also requires less effort from the player now as well. The main mechanic of Mario Golf has always featured a timing mechanic with the small cursor moving back and forth to have the player measure the accuracy and power of the swing. Super Rush has simplified this mechanic, down to simply measuring the power, and the game does the rest, automatically determining the accuracy for you. They could have chosen to implement this as an optional feature, much like 2003's Toadstool Tour, and instead have made it the only way to play the game. Everything just feels dumbed down and bare bones. The new game mode, Super Rush, which the entire game is named for, isn't worth being called the major selling point of the game. The mode itself features all golfers playing at the exact same time on the same field as they hit the ball, and then have to run through the field to their ball to swing again. It makes the entire thing feel like a race, and it's fun, for the first few rounds. Then you quickly realize just how repetitive the AI is, and how little variety there is to the mode itself. It quickly wears off its welcome. When all is said and done, you're left with a short story mode, very few game modes, and replayability that offers nothing more than you attempting to beat your own score. Nintendo has promised the game will have updates in the future, and have already delivered on this partially, with an update featuring New Donk City as a new course. But even so, it makes us miss the old days when a game would be released when it was fully ready and fleshed out, not just when it's convenient to fill a spot on the calendar. Nintendo, we hope this isn't a sign of things to come for future releases. Super Rush has potential, but only time will tell if it ever meets it fully. Mario Golf Super Rush does a swing and a miss, with a 3 out of 5.
I told you. I told you. It could have been great. Could have been amazing. Could have been the next big Mario sports title that we've been yearning for years. And it's a half-baked game where they're continuing to do this update model where they give you the half-baked thing up front, and then down the line they shove in more content. Just give me a full game. I'm spending $60 on this stuff. I want a full game, Nintendo. Don't ask for much. But, speaking of full games, let's take a look at Skyward Sword HD. This game was not the most popular back in 2011, thanks to swinging your Wii remote around like a fool and failing endlessly, trying to kill enemies with super precise strikes. And they finally have updated it to where you can now use the control stick and a few other methods to quality of life improvements. Some of them are locked behind a paywall. You'll see what I mean. Here's our review for Skyward Sword HD.
In 2011, Skyward Sword was released for the Nintendo Wii, and was met with mixed reception. Many fans and critics praised the game for having what many consider the best story in the entire Zelda franchise at the time, mixed with a fun and vibrant cast of characters and environments. So, why the mixed reception? The most important part of a game is its gameplay, and Skyward Sword's gameplay was originally a bit tedious. Relying on the Wii motion controls, the game was designed for one-to-one movement, with Link copying you exactly based on how you swing the Wii remote. This meant enemies would block certain spots and players needed to swing a specific way to cause damage. It sounds cool on paper, and I'm sure the devs had good intentions, but the execution just wasn't there. It was clumsy. Fighting basic enemies felt like it took forever, and just became an overall tiring experience. Fast forward 10 years later, and we now have Skyward Sword HD for the Nintendo Switch. Is it any better? For the most part, yes. Skyward Sword HD is a good port that not only improves the visual quality, but also comes with some quality of life improvements, such as additional camera controls, the ability to keep Fi's constant interruptions optional and to a minimum, and even the ability to fast travel. More on that in just a moment. With so many improvements to the original, what's stopping it from being perfect? Well, the new controls aren't exactly flawless. Rather than simply pushing a button to swing the sword like in most traditional Zelda titles, you now have to move the stick in the direction you intend to swing. It takes a bit of getting used to, and never feels entirely right for me, but it gets the job done. If you prefer motion controls, like the raging psychopath that you are, those are left in here as well if you want to go for the original experience. On top of that, the game suffers from a lack of any additional content to the original and still has a $60 price tag. Additionally, one major upgrade of the game allows Link to quickly travel from land back to the sky and then back to the same point on land, and it's locked behind an additional $25 amiibo, making the grand total for the full experience an $85 port of a Wii game. If this were a brand new title, it may not be so bad, asking for a little extra for an additional feature, but to lock that behind a separate paywall for a game that's 10 years old just comes across as a bit greedy. The camera controls, while improved, are also a bit odd. The same control stick that controls your sword also controls the camera, with the only difference being you hold a button down to determine which action the control stick takes. Skyward Sword HD overall has improvements in almost every way. They just feel like they were executed a bit oddly or approached from the wrong way. Visually, the game has never looked better, which is saying a lot as the original Wii version was definitely a little sore on the eyes in modern times. If you've never played Skyward Sword, then this is the best way to be introduced to the game. If you're a returning player, you may find it hard to justify the $60 price tag plus an optional $25 amiibo for full features. Either way, Skyward Sword still tells a fantastic story and sets the foundation for the entirety of The Legend of Zelda's lore. It's a must-play title for any fan of the series, and we now have more options for how to experience it, and that's never a bad thing. Skyward Sword HD gets a 3 out of 5.
So there you have it. Skyward Sword HD is a promising HD remake of the Wii Classic, the 2011 Wii Classic. They could have done a little bit more, I think, to really flesh it out and make it a truly A+ 5-star experience, but for what it is, it's pretty good. I just think the full price tag on top of the amiibo is a bit of a downer. And I think outside of that, though, for the most part, they did a good job on that one. As always, I want to thank you all for watching Ultima Gaming. Remember, you can always go to patreon.com/VGX7. Check us out there. And I will also have a link below for a podcast I was recently a guest on, where I kind of shared my story in relation to G4 and the work I've gotten to do with them a little bit. As far as podcasts go, we don't really have a new episode of Everything You Want, Nothing You Need. COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in everything, and it continues to do so to this day, in addition to a few other behind-the-scenes issues that have been ongoing recently. But we'll figure something out in the meantime as far as a filming location for the podcast. And I hope to have a special guest with me here soon, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button below. I really appreciate that, as always. The numbers have been kind of dwindling a little bit. I think it's time we get the number back up, you know. But yeah, that is it for now. As always, thank you all for watching Ultima Gaming.